You should be aware that the city council passed another motion by Bob Blumenfield to try to help with the properties behind Trader Joe's in order to be able to eliminate some of the encampment issues that are going on there. It is a difficult process, to say the least, of having to get the city council to approve what areas are going to be marked. And what is disappointing, I think, to me in this entire process, and I think to others as well that I've heard, is that the city council passed that by a vote of 9-6. And I'm surprised that when our council member wants to designate an area, especially like what's going on behind Trader Joe's, that is not supported by every single solitary member of the city council. That lets you know that there's an interesting philosophy that's going on down there that's different than what we might have expected. The motion at any rate is to expand Municipal Code 41.18, generally known as 4118, which is going to be prohibiting people from sitting, lying, sleeping, or storing, using, or maintaining, or placing personal property, or otherwise obstructing the public right of way up to a minimum distance effective for a minimum period of prescribed time. And it is now posted, or will be posted at that location. They cannot enforce that until it's been posted. That's been part of the problems that we've had with what's been going on with Judge Carter and some of the federal court problems that we've had with that. But be aware that's what is going to go on with that. And hopefully it'll get itself straightened out. As Ken is going to probably address for this evening too, we will need to watch that rather closely to make sure there's not going to be a problem with what's going to go on at his facility, because there have been people who have been camping out underneath the freeway at the location. They keep coming in and coming back out. They will probably want to at some point find their way back closer to you at some point. So let's hope that doesn't end up happening, but there it is. I see on our list of people that are here now that we have some that are from the council office, some that are from the supervisor's office. If any of you have something that's extremely important that we need to share, let us know. Raise your hand and I'll be happy to give you a couple of moments of time, but we want to get to Ken because he's going to fall asleep on us because it's past his bedtime, he says, at this point. So, and do keep that in mind. And as we go along through this, if you do have some questions of Ken, I'm going to give Ken probably about 10 minutes or so to give us an update on some things of what's going on. Then we'll open up to questions. I've got quite a few for him. I'm sure the board members do too. And as we go through it, if each of you have some questions, just raise your hand. I'll try to get to you. Please try to keep it short and simple. There's other people that would probably like to be heard and get a chance to have an opportunity to do so. So try to keep that short and simple and get to the point on that. And forgive me if I cut you off. I'm not trying to be rude in that process, but really just trying to make sure things move along so that everybody gets a chance to have their shot at Ken during that process to it. So Ken, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor at this point and let you take over and give us like about 10 minutes or so, and we'll come back and give you a hard time with some questions at that point. But bring us up to date, if you would, on what the status is. We see the colors have been changed out there. Some don't like the coloring that doesn't fit in with the neighborhood, but we do know it's going to be family oriented. Tell us about how many beds are coming in, how much is going to be there, where you are in the process. And I think that there's, for those who have been asking, I got a question today, actually from a reporter, is there anything we can do to stop it? And the answer is no, it's going to be going through. You've got the property's been transferred to you, but give us an update, Ken. Let us know what's going on and what we can expect for the future, if you would.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, John, and thank you, the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association, just for the opportunity to kind of fill you in on what is going on. As you've been driving, if you have been driving by on Ventura Boulevard, you've seen a gradual transformation of the site. We've been working on that. Our contractor is Ford Inc., and our architect is Naren, who's with Cadre Architect. And really the design and the plan was to design something that would be light, that would be life-giving, that would be inviting for those families that will be taking up residency on a temporary basis. I think it's important that those of you that are on this call, you realize that This is not permanent housing. This is what is known as interim housing. And so it's for families who are currently unhoused, and there is a process in order for them to get in. And then once they're in, they will be surrounded with a full array of homeless services to assist them to get back on their feet and to get into some form of permanent housing. There is an intake process, usually, and let me back up for one moment to say that, I mean, this particular hotel is 100 units. There will be a maximum capacity of 400, which it's not going to ever have 400, but there are 400 beds because within each of the rooms there are 2 bunk beds, a total of 4 beds. So if you have, say, a mom with a child, okay, that's the maximum. That it's going to be 2 people in that room. There is a few rooms that are actually oversized in case that you have a larger family, but usually the average size is going to be 2-3 individuals that are coming in. You must have a child that is under the age of 18 years of age in order to qualify to stay here. And this particular project is a partnership. It is a partnership with the County of Los Angeles. And, the County of Los Angeles was looking for sites to assist with caring for unsheltered families. And currently, oftentimes families will be placed into certain motels in the San Fernando Valley that, quite frankly, are probably not the best for families. And there's just been a lack of wraparound services to assist them. So this was a very strategic move by the county. And taking advantage of what is known as Project Home Key, coming from the state of California, and some funding that was made available to purchase certain sites to renovate them. Most of them, if you look throughout the county or throughout the state, have actually been turned into what's known as permanent housing and permanent supportive housing. This one is a little unique and special because it is interim housing, because the county deemed that was probably one of the greatest needs that the San Fernando Valley had, is to care for those individuals and those families that find themselves unsheltered and unhoused. When you drive by, you'll notice that there is a single point of entry. I had shared this before, and we will continue to have this, and that is for security purposes. We will be able to monitor everybody that walks through those doors. The single point of entry has a pedestrian gate and it has a vehicular gate. They're side by side, and then there is a security guard stationed in the front. Not that we've ever had a single problem at any of our family shelters, but it is part of the scope of required services that LASA would require, that we do have 24-hour security on site. And so when a family is referred in, typically they are brought in by a caseworker, and they do a soft handoff. And then at that point, we do an orientation and we go over all the rules, the expectations, and then they're assigned their room. And I'll be quite honest with you, I have been present on many occasions when it's about 90, and I say this, about 90% are usually single moms and kids. And the other 10% can be made up of, a mom and a dad, however the family structure consists of, or a single dad, et cetera. But I've been on site many times when a family, or especially a single mom with kids, comes onto the site, and all they know is that, hey, they're going in their minds to a shelter, and it conjures a lot of different ideas. It could conjure the idea of a massive room with cots. And so when they finally see that, no, you actually have your own room, every room has its own bathroom, usually the mom breaks down and cries because she's been carrying the weight of the world, caring for her children in a very difficult situation. And the kids, they look at the bed, they look at their mom, is it okay? And the mom says yes, and they claim their bed, and once again they become kids, and they can laugh, and they can begin to live life. And so we're really excited about getting it open. Some key dates that are important to you, if you're interested, we are having a ribbon cutting, but that is by invitation only, but that's going to be Monday at 12 noon. But the date that I would like you to write down is Saturday, May 27th. On Saturday, May 27th, we are having an open house, and I encourage you, I invite you, please come see it for yourself. And you'll be able to have a guided tour, walk, and and see it for yourself exactly where the family is going to be living. Now, I do have some really good news. Okay, I'm really excited about this. But before I get to that, I will just say that, Hope the Mission, we will be providing all of the services that are needed: 3 meals a day, case management, housing navigation, help bring access to mental health services if needed. And also, we are mandated reporters. So if we find that there is a parent that is using and they're an unfit parent, we do have to report that. So I just want you to know there are safety measures in place even as it relates to that. But one of the things I'm really excited about is the Denny's restaurant, because the Denny's restaurant is part of that campus there. And there was Starbucks had it in escrow before we moved into escrow to purchase it. And then they decided, don't know if they want to be there. So they backed out of escrow. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do with this Denny's restaurant? And I had a lot of people floating ideas past me. But the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what would be the perfect use of that facility? To open a childcare facility, okay, a preschool in particular. Why? Because we want those moms, the parents, to be working. We work with them. We have a very robust job training, job placement program, but it's very difficult to work when you have a small child. And so we're working with the Child Care Resource Center, one of the largest child care organizations in the city of Los Angeles. They were thrilled when I broached the subject with them. They said, yes, let's do this. We already have vouchers for the parents that are there, that they can use that so the kids can have preschool. It'll be a state licensed preschool, which we're excited about, but it's also going to be a community center where we can offer classes on anger management. We can offer classes on life skills. We can offer, classes on the job training and job skills, and a place where, the older kids can come and be afterwards. I will say that only those that are registered guests can be on the campus. You cannot have a guest or a friend come visit you on site. There's plenty of other places you can go meet somebody at a local park, things of that nature. But in order just to protect the site, we have video surveillance on every corner. We see everything that's going on, every side of path, and we have security guards, and then we have our own staff that's there 24/7 as well.
Will there be a limit on the number of guests that can come in?
0.
Well, as far as somebody wants to have a guest come in and visit them, are they limited to where they're going to have 1 or 2 or 3, or is it as many as they want to?
None.
There'll be no visitors allowed in.
No.
So it's just the only people that can actually get through your gate then are going to be those that are housed at that location.
That's correct. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to visit with somebody, they're going to have to leave the facility and go someplace else to visit if they wished.
They can go to a local park. Yeah. They can go to Starbucks. They can go to, like most anybody else. If you're going to meet a friend, you're going to meet them somewhere, maybe at the mall, wherever else they choose to. But, and we just find this just for safety purposes. We want to know who's coming in, and we want to know what they're bringing in. And that's the role of our security guards. So again, our goal is typically someone will stay in interim housing or transitional housing. Usually it's going to be 6 months to 12 months. And the biggest problem that we have, of course, is the throughput, making sure that we can get them into some form of permanent housing. And I do know that there is concerns sometimes, individuals, especially when you hear that there's going to be a facility that has unhoused people, which could be any of us. If for some reason I was unhoused tonight, it could be an unhoused person. There's this stigma that, there must be something wrong. And I would just say that we've been running family shelters for, I think, 7 years now, and we have never had an issue. I find that especially single parents and parents and families are the most highly motivated individuals to exit homelessness, to get back on their feet. And so many of them just really need a break. They need an opportunity, and we provide that for them. So it will be a contained campus, and we will work very closely with LA Unified School District. Every child must be in school, and we'll also work with School on Wheels so that after school, kids will have mentors and people that will be able to help them and with their homework and after school activities as well.
Is that going to be on site, Ken? In other words, if mom is, our dad, if the case be, is out working and what have you, the kids are coming back from school. First of all, are you making some kind of arrangements for them to get to and from? And then second, when they come back, they will be, in theory, unsupervised by an adult at that point from their own house. Is there something that's being arranged to take care of those children there?
Depending on their age. Okay, if they're the older teens, then they can still be in their room by themselves. Just like a child, if they're going to high school and they go home and their parents are working, they'd be at home by themselves. We do not allow just the younger kids. We work with the parents. If younger, then we will actually have care in the community center where the kids that are under 13 or so will actually need to be there until their parents are there to take care of them.
And as far as there was one question just showed up, and I want you to finish up with what you got. We have a lot of questions, of course, with the people not having any guests coming in, and if they want to meet up with somebody, they have got to go outside. Are you going to have any rules about them not congregating outside? I mean, I could see very easily somebody, even one of the kids, wants to meet with some of their friends, and you'll have 8 or 10 of them will show up out on the sidewalk. How is that being handled as far as people not congregating around the outside of the location?
Yeah, we have a policy. There's no loitering outside of the facility. So, if they're going to meet with someone, they need to go somewhere that's a public place that they can meet somebody. Like I said, it could be a Starbucks, it could be a park, a mall, something of that nature.
Okay, are these rules going to be something they're going to sign on to, almost like a contract, if you will, that they've got to adhere to?
There is, yes. That's one of the very first things that they do is when they come in, they sit with the case manager and we kind of walk them through. These are the guidelines. Because we're dealing with a lot of people, and so there has to be guidelines and rules so that everyone's on the same page to prevent anarchy.
That sounds good. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead if you have some more, and then we'll come on to some more questions.
No, I mean, I can actually end that portion right there.
All right. Well, all right, good. Let's catch a couple of them. Some are concerned about the possibility of, or maybe even the probability of there being drugs and crime at the location itself. You say you're going to have security that's there. Is that security 24 hours a day?
Yes, the security is 24 hours a day. And part of the rules is there's no drugs, there's no alcohol, there's no weapons allowed on site. And so that is the responsibility of our staff and the security guard to make sure that that does not happen. I would just remind people that this is their home. And, I think probably it's definitely more strict than most people that live in their own single family dwelling. There are many kids who go home and they probably end up using in their house. But, we have even more rules than that to just kind of protect the site to make sure that it's safe for everybody.
Well, if somebody, let's say one of the kids, let's say they're 12 years of age and they decide they want to go out and take a walk at 2 o'clock in the morning, are they going to be allowed out of the gate to go do so? You say it's their home, and that might be something that could happen in a residential area. The parents don't even know they've snuck out, if you will.
Yeah, we have curfew for kids.
Okay. Also, are you going to allow, what's the story with allowing the police to come in? Are you going to allow them to have access if they need to get in? Or is it going to be one of those things of going, you don't have a warrant, you don't get in, we're stopping you at the front gate?
Yeah, I mean, for us, the police are our partners. Okay, if they have what they believe is a legitimate reason to have to come in, just like if they went to your house, okay, if they had a legitimate reason, I'm sure you would probably be very reasonable and work with them. And so we would do the same.
Are the residents excluded if they have any kind of a criminal record, or do you expect that the people that are in your facility will have criminal records?
I get very, very few. I mean, we've been running family shelters, three family shelters for the last 7 years, and very few of them do. But just like your next door neighbor may have had historically they may have had a run-in with the law, and so some of our residents may have historically, and it's a very small percentage. But if there's someone that we feel is a threat to themselves or a threat to others, then we would have to address that issue. And not everyone's going to be a perfect fit for this particular facility.
How are you going about screening them on that, Ken? Because, listen, somebody may have had a problem 20 years ago and they're no longer a problem. But there may be somebody who is indeed a problem. How are you screening them that may have had records, even if they don't have records? How are you screening them as far as their mental acuities, their propensity for any kind of violence or what have you. How's that being screened?
When you say, if someone moved into your house next door to you, how would you screen them?
Well, that's not really the question. I guess it's what it amounts to is you're not doing any screening is what it sounds like to me.
Well, we make sure that we have no sexual offenders on site. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, well, so there are some limitations. So somebody has a prior sexual offense, they're not going to be housed there, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, if somebody has got a prior domestic abuse, for example, problem, they're going to be allowed there.
Has that issue been addressed? Were they arrested? Did they do time? It's a very hypothetical question.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at, because I'm not getting a straight answer from you, what kind of screening are you going to do on them? Or are you doing any screening at all? We know the sexual predators are not going to be allowed in.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that they're not on probate, they're not on parole. Okay, so if there's someone that's on parole, if there's someone that is, we have certain background checks that are required that we follow. But they are minimal. But I think what happens here, John, is you tend to go down this pathway that creates this minuscule opportunity of something horrible that could happen. And I'm telling you, I think that's not fair to the listeners. And I think you're trying to create something that's not going to happen.
I'm really not. I think what I'm trying to do is actually give you an opportunity to dispel any of the rumors that might go around or any of the fears that people end up having. These are the fears that people are mentioning to me. And let's talk about one of the other ones, which is the safe boxes. I understand there's supposed to be a safe box outside that people can deposit things in that are illegal or may be problematic or not allowed inside, and they can put those things into a safe box. Am I mistaken on that? I think you're using those.
Yeah, that is mistaken. That's for our singles, for single adults, but we do not have that at our family shelters.
Okay, so how are you going to be monitoring to make sure that there's drugs not coming in or weapons not coming in?
We check when people come in. That's when we check their belongings when they come in. That's what the security guard's responsibility is.
Is that basically set up? Again, I don't know. Is it set up like you would go through the airport security? If somebody's got a backpack, that the security guards are going to look in the backpack before they come in?
Typically, yeah. If you have a bag, they ask you to, they look inside the bag, and we do have metal detectors, and we wand people every time they come in.
All right, so it's almost like what you're going, a minor airport type of security that's going to be going through.
And we remind people we do that so that everybody can feel safe. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe and secure being on site.
Well, I agree with that. I think that's the best of the situations for sure. Somebody had asked about somebody being 18. At what point are the children get to be too old and they're not supposed to be there? In other words, if somebody comes in at 17 and a half now, and they can't find a permanent position for them, and now they're over 18, are you asking the family to go find some other place, or how's that being handled? Or is that
we would continue to work with that family until we got them housed. We tell people, like, when you come in, your next stop's permanent housing. We're not going to give up on you. Don't give up on yourself. We're going to keep working with you until we get you permanently housed. Well,
that sounds good. I appreciate that. I'm assuming you will have both mothers and fathers that would be there. It's not going to be couples, however. It will be just a.
It can be.
We have husband and wife and a child.
Yeah, it's families. Yeah. So and as we know, families take on many different forms. It could be a single mom, it could be a single dad, it could be a mom and a dad, it could be a mom and a mom, a dad and a dad. There's families take on many different forms, and we don't discriminate against families.
All right, that's good. I think that a lot of us had the impression, I certainly did, that it was going to be strictly just somebody had been separated out. It's just a mother and a child, or a father and a child, and not the other way around, not full families. That's interesting. Are you doing anything on site to be helping them get some type of employment? How's that going to work?
Yeah, we have a very robust job training and job placement program And so it's based out of North Hollywood, but we would actually bring our staff on site, and we would have opportunities to we would meet with the residents, those that are unemployed, and find out what kind of jobs have they had in the past, what are their skills, maybe they have interests, and we work with them to help them get the jobs, that they're looking for. Now, if someone has a disability where they just are not able to work, then we're mindful of that, but we're also then trying to get them linked to appropriate public benefits so that they can again eventually get into some form of public housing.
Interesting question from Harry Sherman has asked an interesting one. He says that he lives within walking distance of the facility and is wondering if there's anything that he can do as a neighbor that would be able to help out the residents. Are you doing anything to allow some kind of coordination with people to mentor some of the children that are there, or in some way interact with them? Is that being arranged, or how's it going to happen, or does it?
And we have a very active volunteer program where people can sign up and to be volunteers. And we want to work with people if there's a particular site, whether it's a tiny home site or a congregant site or a family site that's near where they live, if they would like to get involved, they can, all of our food prep is done in North Hollywood, where we're building our new kitchen, and then it is delivered. And so we can use volunteers to help deliver or dish that food, put it on a plate and serve. Also, we work with volunteers that can come in and can teach classes. We do anyone that's going to work with kids, we do make sure that they're fingerprinted, and we want to make sure that the site is incredibly safe because of the fact that we do have kids. So it's not just anyone who wants to volunteer. We want to make sure that they're safe volunteers that are coming on site with a very specific purpose of whether it's after school mentoring, and it would be done in a public place with staff there as well.
Assuming that somebody violates the rules and for whatever extent, and you decide that they can no longer stay there and it's time for them to move on, if they refuse to leave voluntarily, will they have to be evicted through the court system? So are you going to rely upon the police to come to arrest them and for trespassing, or how's that going to be handled? Hopefully you never have it, but how do you handle that?
And that's a good question, because I haven't had to deal with that. I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years and I've just never had that incident. So if indeed that happened, we would, deal with it at that time.
Well, I guess it really comes down to you relying upon outside agencies to do it, or is it something you can take care of in-house?
Usually we can do it in-house. What I mean by that is we build really good relationships with the families, and they know that we have their best interest in mind. And so if somebody is violating the rules and the expectations, we sit with them. We talk with them. We put them on an improvement plan. We want to work with them. We want them to succeed. If ultimately they are just, it's not a good fit for them. There have been times we've had to say, okay, you know what, this just does not seem to be a good fit. And if it doesn't, then, we're going to have to find someplace else for you. And usually just because you're dealing with so many, with parents that do love their kids, that they are highly motivated to do what needs to be done to make sure that, and many of them have come from very difficult places. The last thing they want is to be unhoused again. So they do a really good job of following the rules.
I would imagine they would. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We hope that will turn out to be a true factor. Are they drug tested periodically? Is there some kind of spot drug testing that goes on?
No, we don't do drug testing, but we do have, staff that's trained that, if we think that somebody, might be using, we deal with that, we talk with them. And if indeed, there's a parent that is, actively using, again, worst case scenario, we haven't had to deal with this, but worst case scenario, if in our judgment that the kids are endangered because of parental activity, then at that point we would have to, notify the authorities of that. Fortunately, we have not had to deal with that. But that's a very real problem in society in general, where people's neighbors, it could be a parent that's unfit, and sometimes a good neighbor might have to call the Department of Social Services and have to deal with that. So fortunately, and let me just say, I'm not saying we haven't had to deal with it. Maybe staff has. If so, I just am not aware of it.
Who's actually, I guess, supervising you? Who's watching who's watching the fox in the hen house here? For example, who's making sure that the security people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, or that the people who are doing the teaching actually have got certificates and what have you? Who's the overwatch? Who's the overlord on what's going on? Obviously, besides you, I'm sure you got hands on with everything that's going on, but who's watching over you?
Well, we are funded through a contract through LAHSA, the Los Angeles Housing Service Authority. They have what's known as a scope of required services that it's very lengthy, very detailed in what is expected of us. And we get monitored and we get audited, and our outcomes are measured. And so there's a very high expectation that if for whatever reason we did not live up to those expectations, then they have the right to remove the contract from us and actually put in another provider.
Well, that's interesting. Because as I understand, your foundation actually owns the property there, correct?
We do, but it is on our balance sheet, but the state and the county has the right to actually take that back if we do not live up to our expectations.
I know I pulled the deed on that. The deed just has it transferred just to you. There's no covenants in that of anything on the deed. Is there some kind of agreement that you have with the state or with somebody else when you pull it back?
Yes.
We able to get a copy of that? Is that something you have? It's available to us?
Yeah, I mean, it's a public record. It should be a public record.
I'd imagine it is. I'll make a request to you on that. I'd like to take a look at those details if we would, Ken. I think we got some, it might get rid of a lot of some of the confusions on some things to know exactly what's there. One of the examples is what happens, for example, if in, I think you're under the obligation to perform for the next 15 years. Does that sound right?
45.
Oh, it's 45 years. Okay.
Yeah, it did say 15, but then there's been an amendment that clarifies that it is 45 years.
Right.
That we have to use that site for 45 years to help families, basically for a family shelter.
All right, let's parcel that out. Let's take the first portion of that. Let's say, for whatever reason, I'm gonna play hypothetical with you. I know you don't like the hypotheticals, but bear with me. Let's say that after 15 years, the county, the state, or whatever has come up with a whole different program that's housing better than what this is working out. And there's no longer a need for your facility to do what it's doing. What happens with that property? Does it revert back to somebody, or does it stay with you? What happens with it? Or do we not know?
Yeah, that would be a hypothetical that we don't know. I mean, if that's the case, I'm sure, there is an extreme housing shortage. And I can't see that property going to waste. Maybe it would be repurposed into permanent supportive housing. But again, I don't know, and what would happen in 15 years.
Yeah, well, let's take the 45 years. What happens after the 45 years?
After the 45 years, then it actually becomes wholly our property. But unfortunately, I'll be dead and gone, and so will you.
Well, let's hope that they'll find ways to keep us all alive a lot longer. That might work out. Maybe that's not a good thing. But I guess what some concerns are is that there were state monies that were being put in that property, about 30 some odd $1 million worth, and that at a certain point in time, those taxpayer monies would go over to a private agency that's not part of the government, that no longer has any control over it. And that seems to be kind of almost to some unfair, because I recognize that you're going to put a lot of time, a lot of effort in for what you're doing, but I also assume that you're going to be paid to be monitoring the location as well. Is that true?
Yes, we have a service contract through LAHSA. Yes.
So you're saying then that after 45 years, when your contract is up, you've got your foundation has the property, they can sell it, do whatever they want to with it. It's just part of their assets at that stage.
That's correct. Yes.
And that's in one of those documents that you said that's part of the public record. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. We'll take a look at that. I think that everybody needs to know what that is, and that's out there, so that, again, there's no misunderstandings of it. I think a lot of people thought you were just going to be operating it and the county was going to own it. And I think there was a lot that were surprised when the deed came out that actually
I think a lot of it is, with owning it, there's a tremendous responsibility. We have to do all the maintenance Okay, pipes are breaking, new roofing has to, go on, all the landscaping. We are responsible for all of that. Yes, the state did give us upfront money to renovate it. Okay, but the ongoing maintenance, we are responsible for the ongoing maintenance of that property.
Well, that's good. So if there's anything that's going on over there that needs to be corrected or changed, you're the ones that are going to be responsible to jump in and take care of that.
Correct.
Okay. The how are you making a determination of which families are coming in? We're looking at some of the statistics when they went through the head count, and it doesn't look like there's 100 families that are in our particular area that need housing. And while there is certainly through other portions of the city, is it the intent to be busing people? That's, I'll forgive the phrase to it, but basically busing people in from other parts of the city to fill up the rooms?
No, the people that are going to be staying there will be people from what's known as SPA 2, the service provider area number 2, which is the San Fernando Valley. And so if a family is unsheltered, unhoused within the San Fernando Valley, they would qualify initially in order to be able to be housed there at that site. And so right now, I think with the numbers of people that are currently families that are unsheltered, I do think we will be able to fill that site.
Well, that's good. Again, I'm going to play that what if game because that's just the way my brain, I guess, is wired. If there comes a time when they're just not filling it up, what are you doing with it then? Are you going to modify what you're doing as far as who's going to be there and whether it's going to be long term or short term or bringing other people in? What's the contingency?
Yeah, I would say currently we have 15 shelters. By the end of 2024, we're going to have 25 shelters. But at this moment right now, every one of our shelter beds are filled every night. So
Okay.
it's a, you're asking me a question, Ken, what if something happens that doesn't happen? I mean, at that point, we're pretty creative, we're pretty innovative. We'll come up with some solutions in order to best serve the community and best serve those in need. That's what we do.
I think that's fair enough, Ken, but forgive me for asking the hypotheticals. Well, nobody expected COVID to come in. Nobody expected this to be people working out of their houses the way they're doing. Nobody expected that the commercial buildings would not have residents in it. But this came back from Boston. Downtown Boston has got 65% of the office buildings are unoccupied because everybody's working from home. Those things are changes. And those changes happened within a couple of years with the time. So things do change.
Let me ask you, how much time do you think they spent worrying about the amount of offices that weren't going to be occupied before it happened? I bet you none. And when it happened, they pivoted and they learned how to deal with it. And that's what we would do.
Well, I think a lot of the commercial buildings, even here, I know I've spoken to some of the developers out here. They don't quite know what to do with it. And they're holding off on doing some of the developments. They can't figure out what that's going to look like. But let's not go there. I know that you don't like to play with the hypotheticals. I understand that. You've got a good record on things that are going on. And as I mentioned to you earlier, that I'll mention now, since we have a lot of people that are online, this is not personal. You've done a good job with the stuff that's there. We're going to watch what's going on. This is in an area that's across from a high school. That's in an area that is some of the most expensive property in Woodland Hills. That it's a highly prized location that's there. We've not had the experience of it. We haven't had it in our backyard. This is in our backyard, and it's new to us. And as a result, we're looking for that comfort level of finding out what's going to be going on, and looking at those hypotheticals, and looking that you're thinking about those hypotheticals, and that you are able to say, listen, we've had experience with this. We'll figure it out. And while we don't know everything that's going to happen, we don't either. We're probing to see if you're thinking about it and what your attitude is on how you're going to be able to make sure the community is being protected. And that's the next question that really comes up. What is it that you're doing to make sure that we're going to be safe in the community and be protected with a high school that's across the street? Are the kids that are coming into that location going to be getting priority if they are going to be going to Taft High School? Or how is that being worked? Or is it just you're going to take the numbers and put them in and we'll figure out what schools they're going to go to? How are you handling that to make sure we're going to have a secure area for that high school?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because, when you have a facility that caters towards families, you do have, what if a family is coming from Canoga Park? Okay, what if the student went to Canoga Park High School, but they really want to continue to go to Canoga Park High School? It doesn't necessarily, it's not really in the best interest of that child is to say, you know what, no, now you have to go right across the street. And so LA Unified School District does an amazing job of working with us and even helping to provide transportation so that kids can continue to go to the school that they previously went to. Oftentimes, though, parents, and kids would say, you know what, hey, I don't mind going to the local school. And so we will work closely. I know we had conversations early on with the principal of Taft High School, and he was actually very pleased to hear that. He said, he even said, Ken, you don't realize how many students we have right here at Taft High School that are homeless. And so, he was actually pleased the fact that we would be able to offer, have a place that's right there. So we'll work with the families. We'll work with LA Unified School District. It is a requirement. Kids need to be in school. And so we will work with to make sure that all kids are in school.
Well, that's good. How are you handling to keep people from using the kids as an opportunity to get into the location? There used to be, listen, this happened a long time ago, probably still going on, where if you wanted your kid to go to a particular school, you'd have a movement with the aunt, and all of a sudden became the aunt's kids, so they go to a particular school. Well, how are you monitoring this? There are some questions coming on here about how you're doing the background checks on these people to see about this criminal backgrounds they have. How are you checking to see that indeed that this is a child and it is a child of one of the parents that's there? Who's doing the background check, and how do we know that it's there, or do we just have to trust you? And I don't want to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's not a whole lot of people that are pretending to be homeless so that they can get into a school. I've never heard of that. And if that does start to happen, then we'll address that.
Listen, we got people coming across the border right now. They're bringing kids across, and that they're claiming they're kids so they can get into the country, and they're not. And so I could see people that are homeless saying, I'll take this kid and I use this kid then to get in one of these nice places as opposed to going to one of the little small homes. Let me say this kid's my kid, but it's really not. It's Aunt Alice's kid instead. How are you doing? What kind of background checks are you doing to make sure?
Well, we verify that child actually belongs to that parent. We do want to see, birth certificates. We want to see that they actually, we don't want to harbor some child that doesn't belong to that parent. And so, we do vet and make sure that this is a legitimate family. But again, I would just say, I mean, you are creating scenarios that if they happen, we will address them, but it's just not reality.
Well, I'm actually not doing. I'm actually asking questions that are coming in from the questions that are coming in that I'm reading off the line at this point. It's not me, Ken. There are people.
Okay.
You have to understand, people in the community that are concerned about this. And while you may think that these questions are stupid and ridiculous, they're not. They're coming from residents.
And I would say, John, I don't think for a moment that they're stupid, and I don't think they're ridiculous. I'm trying to say that I've been doing this work for some time, and they're issues that we've never had to address, and I don't anticipate having to address many of them. But if indeed we do, I promise you, we have some, we're going to think it through. We're going to do what's best for the community. But if we spend all of our time trying to come up with all the what ifs, we're not going to be doing the actual work we need to be doing. We need to be very diligent about what we do and do a good job, because when families come to us, we do make sure that they're well taken care of and positioned. We want them to succeed. We want them to get jobs. We want them to deal with whatever issues may have, either led to their homelessness or are preventing them from being permanently housed. And so we're going to, focus our energy and effort on that.
Well, Ken, you've not been doing this forever. I mean, you started with the mission work, which was taking care of people at the mission back a while ago. Now you started with the housing issues, only been fairly recent by comparison.
I mean, since 2014.
14, yeah. So that's, to me, that's what you got. 9
I mean,
years.
the whole agency and organization's only 13 years old. So we are relatively young, but I think the county and the city and the state and the federal government they believe in the work that we do, and they've gotten behind us, and they've been strong advocates and supporters of the work.
There's a question from Mark, who wants to know what your salary is for running the shelter.
My salary, my personal salary is $150,000 a year, and we have a staff of 600 people that I manage. And we have 29 locations that I oversee.
And what's your operating budget a year?
This year, it's going to be close to 65 million.
And where's most of those monies coming from?
over 50% of it is coming through contracts with the city or the state, through government contracts. Then we've got about 15% comes through our thrift stores. We have 5 thrift stores. Then the rest of it is coming through events, individual donors, foundations, and corporations.
And we encourage everybody to go to those thrift stores too, to take advantage of that as well. Another question from this one wants to be anonymous. What kind of health care, mental health care is going to be available on site now?
On site, one of the nice things that's happened is we ended up launching our own mental health department, starting it at the Trebek Center. And then we had a couple of private foundations that helped us get that started. And then Congressman Brad Sherman was able to secure funding so that we could now have mental health clinicians at every one of our site locations. So we're in the process of coordinating that so that we would have on-site mental health available to those that may want those services.
Another anonymous one. This is again, so I want you to know, it's not just coming from me. And again, I don't have anything personally against you at all. In fact, I think you could do work. Again, it's just because of where this is, and it's in our backyard, and we want to make sure it's going to be good. This person says, yesterday KABC TV found that the county motels and residents were not receiving services as promised. The mayor said there's just too many individuals to help. What makes you think that the county will uphold their commitments to your organization?
Well, that's why they reached out to us originally, and when we were talking to them, because they want to do a better job of caring for the families. Unfortunately, there has been times where families have been placed into motels that just didn't have supportive services. They didn't have food services. They didn't have on-site case management. They didn't have on-site childcare, preschool, that's for sure. They didn't have that. And so the county has said, listen, we want to upgrade how we care for homeless families. And, but the county's not in the business of running all that themselves, but they are in the business of vetting and making sure that they've got community partners that can do that. And so how do I know? We have a contract with LASA. And so LASA is the one, there's funding that comes in from the state, funding that comes in from the county, and, portions of it from the city and various, measures, Measure H. And they're the ones that ultimately are funding the, and just through, in transparency, we will get paid $110 per day per family. Okay. And so it could be a family of 4. So you break that down, how much per person. And with that, we have to pay for all the security. We have to pay for, 3 meals a day. We have to pay for all the staff, the building upkeep, the site upkeep, all the utilities, trash, everything comes out of that. And I will say this, to be honest, we lose money. Okay, on nearly every one of our contracts. If anyone thinks, oh man, you're making money, we don't. We actually lose money on our contracts. That's why we have thrift stores and we have gap funding, and we reach out to foundations to say, listen, I can show you, our matter of fact, our actual cost is more around $120 to $122 per family per day. And so we lose a good $12 per family per day. Okay, and that's part of why we do raise funds and even give opportunities for people to sponsor rooms. We've had a lot of people who live in Woodland Hills who've sponsored rooms, for $5,000, and they get their name on it, sponsored by, in honor of, in memory of, and that helps us just to narrow that gap of the money that we lose on our contracts.
Is this the largest facility so far that you've been operating?
100
beds, 100 beds with 400 people.
400 beds would be the largest in terms of beds. In terms of units, no. The Arroyo Seco has 117 units, and Alexandria Park has 107 units.
All right, so it's right up there with some of those other units as well. Somebody wanted to know, and this may be too much in the weeds, how do they get on? I don't think this person wants to know, but how does somebody get on the list to be living there? How are they finding them?
They would have to, first of all, within this spa, which is Spa 2, which I mentioned earlier, this service provider area, there is a lead agency. That lead agency is LA Family Housing. Okay, they've been around a long time, do great work. And in order for someone to get to our site, they first have to go to LA Family Housing. LA Family Housing has a very rigorous vetting process to make sure that someone's actually genuinely homeless. Okay, that it's not someone who's just trying to take advantage of the system. There's very few people that are doing that anyhow, but nevertheless, if someone is, so they verify that this person is homeless. And once they verify that they're homeless and they understand, and doing some of the background, they then would call us and say, listen, you know what, we have this family that definitely would qualify. Do you have a bed available? And so between the lead agency and then them calling us and making sure that we do have a room available, then that's how someone would then come to us and we would continue with the assessment process on site.
How many current applications do you have? Do you have how many you've got filled up so far at this point, or waiting list, I guess?
We're not, that would be more of the lead agency question, because we haven't started keeping a list on that.
Well, when will you actually be open for business? When's
Our goal is to open May 31st. So we are
of this year, like a couple of days,
yeah.
Weeks.
So
Nobody's given you a list of who's going to be coming in yet at this point.
Not yet, no, but what it is we have, remember we said that there's families that have actually been staying in certain motels that just don't have all the supportive services around them.
Right.
And so they would be the top priorities then to be able to come in. And so, if someone is staying at a motel, could be on Sepulveda Boulevard, but there's no supportive services there with them. So they would then, we already know they qualify, and they would be some of the first ones to be able to come in.
I'm sort of surprised that Lafayette has given you a list and say this is what, so you can begin to become prepared for them as to, listen, you mentioned you're going to have transportation, for example, to schools. You don't know, even at this point, what the ages are of the kids and how you're going to get them back and forth to schools.
Well, see, and that's because, things have been changing rather quickly. I just found out today, it looks like we are going to be getting our if all goes well, we could be getting our certificate of occupancy as early as Friday. Okay, so then once we get our certificate of occupancy, then we're like, okay, all systems are go. And then we can notify the lead agency, this is going to be the date. And then we start working on families. But until then, we've been in construction mode. It's a construction site.
So I was over this afternoon, just taking another look at it, and there's fences up around and what have you, and security guard that's on location. And so nonetheless, you're going to be able to make sure these kids are going to be able to get back and forth to school somehow. That's being done by you.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes.
You're not waiting for LA Unified School District to do something. You're going to make sure that they have transportation.
No, we work with LA Unified School District. We don't have staff that's driving kids, back and forth to school. We have to rely upon LA Unified School District.
Well, LA Unified is, who knows? Again, we're playing that what if game again. My fear is that they're going to say, oh, well, they just have to. Somebody's going to drive them in, and their parents are just going to have to drop them off if they go to work, and we're not going to provide any school buses for them. Has there been any discussions about how that's going to happen at all?
Right now, when we need kids to be able to get to schools where they came from, LA Unified School District has prioritized families in crisis. And when a family is homeless, they're in crisis, and they want to make sure that those kids have as much stability as they possibly can. And they have worked with us to make sure those kids get picked up and taken to those schools.
I'm pleased to hear that. How are they handling it in the other locations? Are they bringing buses by to them, or how are they getting the kids?
Correct.
So that
or small vans and but they've done a great job. And usually what happens though, honestly, the majority of them, the parents ultimately and the kids, end up, going to a local school, which is also great. But we want to make sure that what we really care about is that the kids are stabilized, because there's nothing more traumatic than for a child to go through homelessness, to be sleeping in a car, to be sleeping outside, to be sleeping in a garage, in some place that's unfit for human habitation. And so we work very closely with various agencies to make sure that the kids are stabilized and that their education is first and foremost.
What's the bigger criticism you've been having at the other facilities? What seems to be the problem that's causing the Achilles heels, as it were? What's the problems of it?
What's interesting is people still don't even know we're there. That's the honest truth. We have 2 family facilities in Chatsworth. Okay, Chatsworth, in rich properties all around us. And we've been there now for 3 years and people don't even know we're there. And we have 25 families and people don't even know we're there. And that's when I say that, if you're going to be involved as a community, and I think every community needs to do its part, whether it's Woodland Hills, Calabasas, Canoga Park, Chatsworth, Northridge, everyone needs to do their part. And as I said this last time, if you're going to do your part, it doesn't get any better than to have a family shelter. Okay. I admit sometimes the single adult shelters, much more difficult. We're dealing with more issues. But with families, if you were to ask me, Ken, what do you think is really going to happen in a year from now? I think a year from now, you're going to forget we're even there. We're just going to blend into the woodwork and we're going to be helping people every day. And then you're going to say, you know what? Ken actually did what he said he was going to do. I'm going to see how I can help him.
Well, we're going to do everything we can to help you, Ken. That's for sure. We want this to be successful. And we want our community to be properly protected. We really do. And along those lines, if there is some kind of a problem there, what do we do? Who are we contacting? Are we going to?
We will make sure
who we get a hold of.
Yes, what I'll do, because I know the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association is very active and engaged. I will make sure you have the cell phone number of the site manager. Okay, and that phone stays with that manager. So when they do a shift change, okay, that new manager carries that cell phone, so that if you and not only that, I would ask of all of you, you are our eyes and ears, okay? Because we're busy, running the site. If you see something, you please let us know so that we can address it. We can't address what we don't know, but we want to work closely with the community that if indeed you see something that just doesn't seem right, let us know, and I promise you we will address it.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that it's going to be important for people to know that you can be responsive to the community on that. And that's, I guess, one of the major concerns everybody has got, that it's just going to be something that we have no control over, that's just here in our backyard. That's not anything that we've ever dealt with before at all. That's outside of the norm. It's in an area that we still are feeling uncomfortable because of the kids that are around. And listen, you probably have not had the experience, but our fears, and mine too, is that there's going to be an attractive nuisance there. And these kids that are coming out of Taft High School are going to be exposed, not so much necessarily to the people that are inside of your facility, but rather those that may be attracted to come to your facility that are going to be hanging out around the outside of it. And we know that the city council is trying hard to be able to get the 4118s to work. I know Sean Dempsey is working hard to make sure that things are being taken care of too with the senior lead officer. And those things are important to us to make sure that those kids are going to be safe over there. And it's got to be watched like a hawk on that, Ken, because we can't stand for that.
Yeah, let me address a portion of that, because there's this thought that, well, if you have a facility where people that are unhoused are living, that's going to somehow create a magnet, that now all of a sudden you're attracting more people that are homeless to be outside and around the facility. Now, I would say if we were setting up a soup kitchen there, okay, and we were offering free meals and showers to the community, then yes, that really could be a problem. But what we have discovered is we will not serve anybody that is not part of that program. There is zero incentive for anybody to be near that facility. And for the most part, people aren't even going to know what it is when they drive by. So that has not been our experience. And if there is anybody else out front, as you mentioned, there is Ordinance 4118, which we will work very closely with the council district to make sure that it gets addressed. But I honestly do not see that happening in front of that facility at all.
Listen, we hope that it's not either, but I'm looking at one of the questions here from, it's actually more of a statement from Julielle, who just moved into the location and they just live down the block. They spent a lot of money on their house to come into this area, wanted to come into a nice, good, safe location to it. They're going to be afraid to walk up and down the streets down there. They see this unusual, listen, it's not just your complex, we got the one going on next to it too. It's going to be a big complex that's there between yours and the extended stay. And people are worried. They don't like what they're seeing. I mean, we've got people who've been around here for a long period of time. They're taking off to go to Florida, Texas, whatever, getting the heck out of town. And
Mhm.
these things are we're looking for things that are going to be helping our community.
Yeah.
And as I told you before, it's not you. It's not the fact of helping people. We're as compassionate as anybody else. It's just we just don't think this is the right location for it because of the potential problems that it may have with the kids across the street. And if it turns out to be an attractive nuisance over there, or you end up changing the protocols on things that are going to go over there, you're going to have to deal with us big time on that because you're making promises to us about how that's going to be handled over there. We're going to have to hold you to it. And that's why I'm looking to see.
Yes.
We're going to see what those signed agreements are as to what you're going to be doing. And again, one of the problems is that I think that with the housing administration, they're not doing all the stuff they're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of people criticizing them that they don't really know what they're doing either, and their administration is not the best it can be.
Well,
So,
and if I can, John, I think, in my heart goes out to the person who says he's worried or she's worried. I get it. Because usually in the absence of information, we tend to create our own narratives. And, what we're not up on, we're down on. And so that's why I'm saying, come to the open house. If you have deep concerns and fears, okay, I'll put my cell phone in the chat. You can call me. You can meet me on site. I'll introduce you to the families and to the kids. You spend a few hours on that site once it's open, and I promise you, your perception will change 100%. You will feel safe walking by that site. And the site next to it is for seniors that are 65 and over. And so as a senior facility, it's, again, the two best possible demographics that you could ask for. I realize nobody has raised their hand and said, please put a facility in our community. No one. I've been doing this for a while. And so, but if you're going to, have to have a facility, these are the two best facilities you could possibly ask for. And let me say this, Councilman Bob Bloomingfield has done an amazing job of, once a site is open, to get the community involved. And we have monthly meetings of which I'll be a part. And we, so you guys will be able to pick some key people you want to help represent the community. And we're going to have conversation, very real conversation, that if you're seeing stuff, that if you feel like we're not honoring what we said we were going to do, that is the place. There will be a forum, a representative that can address those issues, and we can respond to them.
well, let's take this one. I'm going to take this as being truthful on its fact here. This is from Susan. It says there are people that are smoking crack outside on the sidewalk in front of the Trebek Center, and it's a large encampment there. Why isn't that area being kept saved? She said she drove by there on Saturday and she personally witnessed it. That's the type of problem we're talking about, Ken. And again, it's our fear of saying these people are looking for places to kind of hang out. And, maybe they're trying to say, listen, look at me. I need to have housing too. Get me into your facility. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is a problem that's going on.
Yeah. And in that case, with the Trebek Center, I mean, we have 107 people that live there. And it was one person, and sometimes it's two or one, that they don't belong to the shelter. Okay. But they are right around the corner, and we are working with LAPD to have them removed. So we're not law enforcement. I can't go out there and strong arm them. Okay. And remember what I said earlier? I did say that is very different when we're dealing with single adults. Okay. With the families, it's been a completely different story.
Well, we hope that'll be the case. And here's the other side to it. And, we go over to the Topanga Mall all the time. This one's coming from somebody who you might recognize just by the language of it. But over 50% of the violent crimes that are occurring over at Topanga Mall are juveniles. And they're running up and down the hallways down there with their skateboards and everything else and causing problems. They're being arrested, but they're not being arrested, rather, but they're not being sent out to the justice system. As you know, they're shutting that thing down now. If juveniles are causing issues at the locations, will they be causing their family to be removed, or is it something that you really are being overly? That's the wrong word. Are you being more sensitive to the fact that they're kids that are being truant or that they're not behaving themselves, and therefore you're not going to kick them out as quickly. How are you handling that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we're going to have teenagers.
Yeah.
I've raised teenagers, and teenagers are teenagers. If they're doing something that is illegal, then we will make sure law enforcement is involved. If they're doing something that is just being a teenager that, you know, may need some corrective action, we will work with the parents to bring corrective actions.
I think what's going on with it, that one, by the way, came from our senior lead officer. It seems that referring it back over to the police department is not really going to work. If they're not behaving themselves, their butt should be thrown out and flat out. I mean, you know, the first time that one of the kids, you know, throws a rock through a window and you guys turn around and say, you guys are out of here, the rest of the group is going to recognize you mean business. And if you know, they're going to push it. I've got grandkids that are around now too. And kids that came through that, they're going to push as much as they possibly can to get away with everything you possibly can. And unless somebody steps in and says, listen, you can't do this, we're going to take our own actions and not say, by the way, you better behave, we're going to call the cops on you. Yeah, what's going on now with the cops being so spread thin, it's almost a joke. Yeah, we'll call the cops and good luck. You know, how are you going to take an easy attitude on this thing? Or are you going to be serious about saying, this is the rules, you violate the rules, you're out of here? Or is this the compassionate thing going, I understand it's been a hard life for you, you know, we'll see what we can do. Which side of that we're falling on?
We are going, I mean, we're not like, if some, and again, it is a bit of a hypothetical, because sure, if there's something that's done that's extreme, okay, then it may require an extreme action on our part. You know, if it's something that, you know, a kid runs across the street and doesn't go down to the sidewalk or down to the crosswalk, okay, then we're probably gonna, you know, let's talk about some corrective actions. And so it really depends the severity of it. But I will say this, I mean, our staff does an excellent job of working with the parents, and we would listen and say, listen, it is a privilege to be here. Okay. It is not a right to be here. It is a privilege to be here. And we are neighbors. We are working together with the community. And the last thing we need to do is to jeopardize what you have right here. And that's why there's this really a deep sense of appreciation on these families. Now, if there's, you know, a teenager who's, you know, acting out, then we're going to have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
Well, that kind of goes to the next question that actually Bobby's got. This one's a good question, Bobby. Can you go into a little more detail about the supportive services? Are they presently funded for you? In the process? Are they being staffed? Are they up and running? Or do you have everybody in line? Or is it going to be 6 months down the road before all those positions are filled? Where are we at with that for this facility?
With the supportive services, and I wish I could tell you that the preschool was going to open at the same time as the facility. It's not. It is under, you know, we're just finishing up the architectural drawings. They need to be submitted. There's a review process. There's a process that it needs to go through. So that's not going to be open until the end of the year. We're going to have to, you know, to renovate that. As far as the site manager and the case managers and the housing navigators, those are all in place. Those are all our employees. We will need to hire someone, a clinician, to be on site. That person we do not have at this given moment, but we haven't opened yet either. And then as far as like School on Wheels, we've already worked with them to have them, they're set, ready to come on site. The Child Care Resource Center, they're going to be as soon as we, you know, on site as soon as we open up our doors. So we have, I'd say, about a good 80% of the staff ready to go at this time, but we still have a few weeks before we open our doors.
Well, that's interesting. So, by the way, on the meals, you mentioned Meals on Wheels. Do you have a facility there that's going to make the 3 meals a day, or are they being bussed in by the Meals on Wheels people? How's that being handled?
Yeah, and just correct it, you know, I didn't say Meals on Wheels, it's School on Wheels.
I'm sorry. I heard.
Okay, that's an after school
wheels
care.
caught me.
But as far as food services go, we Hope the Mission, we're building right now a very large commercial kitchen. It'll be a regional kitchen. It's in North Hills, capable of producing 5 million meals a year. We can have 30 people at any given time working in this kitchen. It'll be completed in September. It's also will be a culinary arts program where we will be training people experiencing homelessness in food services so that they can get jobs. Right now, the food is being prepared at our kitchen in Pacoima, and we deliver the food. We have 3 vehicles that drive to various locations, and we deliver the meals 3 times a day.
Are there any kind of cooking facilities for the people that be residing at that location?
Every unit will have a small refrigerator, okay, a small one, and then a microwave. But no, there's no hot plates allowed. You cannot cook inside your unit.
Right. Well, they had a problem with this. So back to the what if game again, but sort of. They had problems in New York with a number of the immigrants that were coming in that were being provided food, and they didn't like the food. They wanted their own type of food that was there. How are you handling that? Where people are saying, I'm because of religious reasons, I have to have this, or I want Mexican food, or I want Italian. How are you handling that with things being prepared offsite?
Yeah, I mean, if someone has special dietary needs, we do cater to that. Like if someone has to have low salt, if someone can't have this or that, they put in what they need, and then our chefs will set aside special dishes for them. But we're not a restaurant. And so we're not, you're not ordering off of a menu. This is the food that we have. We try to offer, food that's pretty much is, loved by as many people as possible. But to answer your question, can someone then just cook their own food in the, if they want to go to Trader Joe's and they want to buy an Indian cuisine and heat it up in their microwave, yeah, they can do that.
Okay. So that you're not going to utilize the old Denny's facility there at all to do anything. There's no restaurant facilities in that. No.
Nope.
That's going to gut it out, I'm assuming.
Yeah. No, the Denny's facility is going to be the preschool.
I get it. But I guess what I was wondering was whether or not you're tearing restaurant stuff out of there to where it uses a restaurant. So why won't you use a portion of it as a restaurant, and then other parts of the day use it for something else?
I'll tell you real quick, because I'd rather only deal with the health department once than twice. Okay. They're not the easiest department to deal with. And so we'd rather have one large central commissary that gets approved by the health department and that we know is good, instead of putting kitchens at all of our facilities.
Are the individuals going to be allowed to lock their doors to where you don't have access to them?
They can lock their doors, but we have access. So
they're going to have to give you a master key.
It's codes.
Okay, codes, that'll be fine.
Yeah, so we do have an overriding code, and that's just in case, God forbid, if something happened, we have to be able to get inside that room.
Okay, that does make sense in that regard. That's for sure. The manager on site, is there going to be a manager there 24 hours a day, or is that just there'll be actually somebody awake during the nighttime? It's a manager.
Yes, 24 hours a day.
Is that in addition to the security person, or is that the security person?
It's in addition to this. There will be, during the nighttime hours, you have a security guard, you will have a manager and a monitor. The other thing that we do that I think people might find interesting is that we do knock on every door twice a day. And we do a wellness check. And we say, hey, we just want to make sure, is everything okay? And it gives us an opportunity just to kind of look inside the room, make sure everyone's okay. If there's nothing going on that shouldn't be going on. And so we provide, we want to keep our eyes open and, make sure that people, that someone's not maybe hoarding something, or they're not, because part of it is you need to keep your room clean also. We want to work with life skills and help people as well. So we're trying to manage that as well.
Karen, I see you had your hand up. It's been quite a while since it's been up. You may have already forgotten about it. If you've got a question, you can unmute yourself, Karen, and go ahead and ask the question. Or maybe Dennis. I think they may have forgotten that they had, there was quite a while the hand went up at that point in time. I've been trying to handle the questions that have been coming in at this particular point. Ken, I guess the bottom line is your transparency becomes, I think, an important issue for all of us in this process. And while we like to have this feeling that we can trust you, you have to recognize that we probably can't, because it's our community too. And while you're not an invader in here, nonetheless, we got people that'll be coming into the community that haven't been here before, and that does create some problems for us. So we're concerned about that. Heath, you had your hand up. Heath Klein, who's on the neighborhood council. You've got a question. Go ahead, Heath.
Great, thanks. Ken, you talked about how the principal across the street at Taft is excited because of the number of homeless students that are there. And I know from my own kids going there, they had friends that were in that situation. And sometimes they were kids aging out of foster care, and they're transitioning into adulthood. Will you be able to support them at this facility, either for attending Taft or the occupational school or Pierce? That's my first question. And then I have a question about long-term finances.
Okay, as far as the TAY population, we actually have another facility for transitional age youth. Remember I mentioned that within a spa that there's a lead provider for families, a lead provider for single adults, and a lead provider for transitional age youth. And the lead provider for transitional age youth is an organization called Village Family Services. And so we actually work very closely with Village Family Services, and we run a TAY shelter. And then in this particular case, they provide the case management for them. So if indeed you knew somebody that needed shelter that was transitional age youth, please let us know, and we'll make sure they get the help that they need.
Great, thanks. And my second question is, Age Project Los Angeles, multi-million-dollar huge organization providing most of the homeless transitional housing around downtown LA, has gone bankrupt. And in part it's because of what you mentioned earlier, the amount of money that the per diem they get for housing the people doesn't cover their costs, and the building maintenance costs, quote, did them in. What are you doing to ensure that Hope of the Valley doesn't meet the same fate? And not to get personal, but does the organization have sufficient cash in the bank to cover maintenance and those types of things? And what's your 10-year plan, let's say, for financial viability?
Yeah, that's a great question as well, Heath. I think if you're just reading the headlines, you also see like Skid Row Housing Trust, unfortunately filed bankruptcy and had a lot of properties that was deferred maintenance and it wasn't properly managed, and that can be a problem. One of the things that, I had the privilege of starting Hope the Mission. And from the very beginning, I knew that we needed multiple streams of revenue. That if you're doing anything with a single stream of revenue, especially if you're, it's just government revenue, you're going to find yourself in trouble at some point. Just the amount of money sometimes that we have in accounts receivable from LAHSA, it would probably shock you. But it has not been, there have been times we've had 13, 15, $16 million in accounts receivable. But we've never had to tap a line of credit. We've been able to float that. And in part, the way we've been able to do that is because of our multiple revenue streams. Our thrift stores generate on an annual basis right now, the 5 that we have, about $6 million a year. Now, of course, there's expenses with that. Our net revenue on it is somewhere around 36%, but that is 100% put right back into homeless services and for deferred maintenance, any kind of deferred maintenance and any project upgrades and things like that. That's what that money is used for. We have our own operations department. If you drive up and down Topanga Canyon, between Lassen and up around that area, you'll see one of our newest buildings. And that is our distribution warehouse where our maintenance team works out of that. And so we have maintenance people that are going to our facilities every day, painting them and, dealing with electrical issues and dealing with plumbing issues and ongoing maintenance. So I would say, yeah, I think we're going to be okay. But that's why one of my major responsibilities is fundraising. And, I don't apologize for that because I want to make sure we are around in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. And that does require us to have cash reserves and that we have to have cash flow in order for that to happen.
Thanks. Oh, can you pitch? What are your shelters nearby? Or rather your thrift stores?
Did you want to know the shelters or thrift stores?
Thrift stores.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 5 thrift stores. We have one in Simi Valley. We have one in Granada Hills. We have one in Santa Clarita, one in Palmdale, and one in Lancaster. And if you just type in, our name is now Hope the Mission because we've extended beyond the San Fernando Valley. But if you type in Hope of the Valley thrift stores, just Google it and it should take you there. Or you can go to our website, which is hopethemission.org, and it lists our thrift stores.
That sounds good. I think that we'd like to be able to support what we possibly can on that, Ken, and we hope that you're going to give us good support here on things as well. That was another question I had, was about the name of the corporation. What is the actual formal name of the foundation's corporation? Because it keeps changing names back and forth. I can't find you.
Well, I mean, we were Hope of the Valley Rescue Mission, founded in 2009. Okay, that was our official name. It was last year that we decided to have a name change on our 13th birthday, kind of coming of age. And we shifted from Hope of the Valley Rescue Mission to Hope the Mission. It's more geographically, benign. It allows, because we're in Highland Park, we're in the high desert, we do operate the VA tiny homes, we're in MacArthur Park. We're now in Victorville, I'm sorry. And so because of that, it just made more sense for us to have a name that was a bit more ubiquitous.
That makes sense. And you're a California corporation, I take it.
Yes. 501c3.
I was going to say, you're also a 501c3, so everybody to know that if they make any donations to you, it's a tax deductible donation, and that's a good thing. Very, very, very interesting things that are going on in our neighborhood, that's for sure. I don't know if we have any more newer questions that this kind of goes along, I think, with what Heath was asking. What happens if somebody trashes inside of one of them? Somebody just goes ballistic for whatever reason. They have a relapse and they just destroy the inside of the place. Who's picking up that tab?
Yeah, we are.
Wow. So you're going to have to watch to make sure that's not going to happen.
That's why we do those, what we call wellness checks twice a day. And I would like to say that that's never happened. It has, not at our family shelters, but we have had on rare occasion where someone had a mental health break. We have had overdoses. There's things that have happened. I mean, that when you're dealing with a population that, especially with the single adults that are dealing with addiction issues or mental health issues, even though we're doing our best to treat them, we're not always 100% successful.
Aaron, you've got a question. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, and I know many people mentioned this, and I'm not sure the link to the open house was not working on your website. Has that been fixed? I don't have it in front of me to check.
Oh, it is working now. By the way, just to follow up on that, Aaron, it was wrong on our website too. It went down for a period of time. It is up on our website too. You can go to it and you can find the link there for that. And it's also in our newsletter as well. And I found that it's also now up on their site as well. And you just have to look for events. There's a tab up at the top and it goes events. Is that fair, Ken? Is that the best location for them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it might be, let me do this too. Maybe if I put in the chat or the Q&A, I guess. You have a chat on here? Let me see.
There's no chat, just the Q&A.
Yeah,
It's public.
We found the chats were getting out of hand on stuff that was going on. But mostly poking fun at everybody who was a speaker, so we cut it out. So you put it on the Q&A, and I can go ahead and make sure that it gets put up to everybody as well.
Another question I had though, what is the marker for success? How long is a family, in success? How long are they going to be at the hotel before hopefully transitioning out?
Yeah, for us, success is helping a family stabilize and then being able to move them into some form of permanent housing. So helping them so they can save their money, so they have a down payment first, and then we link them. We have 23 housing navigators, and the job of a housing navigator is to work with one of our residents, and then to help them find a place that they can afford, and get them document ready to make sure that they can move into this place. Usually, that takes about 6 months to 12 months. There's times it does take longer as well. If we're working with people that, for whatever reason, have not been able to save their money, or people that might have some forms of disability, and we're waiting for SSDI to come in. And then the housing market is tight, especially trying to find some level of affordable housing. I mean, there are housing vouchers. The waiting list, if someone's trying to get on with HUD, can be 3 and 4 years. So that's not usually the route that we're going. We're working with people trying to get them into some form of housing, around the 12-month mark. Let me say, and success would be not just moving them into housing, but having them keep their housing.
It seems like it's not just a short-term thing. You really are trying to get people to change their lives around for long-term, and that's
correct.
By the way, the site is that it's up on the Q&As, but it is hopethemission.org/tour Woodlands with an S at the end of it. That would get them over to the site. So it's hopethemission.org/tour Woodlands, and it's Woodlands with an S at the end, and that should get it up to that. Harry got to you first. He got it up at that point. So.
By the way, we did change the name. It's no longer called the 818. Okay, we're with you guys. We're now called the Woodlands.
Yeah, it's been we have it up on our site too, and in the newsletter we've indicated that it's indeed the Woodlands. Everybody knows it as the 818, however, and it's going to take a while before that ends up changing, I can assure you. And
I'm sure.
Listen, I think it's good that you have changed the name. I think the 818 is going to have a stigma that's going to get attached to it. If you kept that name to it, I think you wouldn't be able to shake that for many years to come. But
yeah,
change at that particular stage. So, Ken, we're excited for you. We really are. We're also excited for our community to have something that's going to be good to help people. We hope that this is going to be something that's not going to create a problem. Chris Rowe did have a question, which I think was interesting, about donations for clothing and what have you. What type of clothing and what have those type of donations would you be looking for to be coming to your facility that will be able to help and to raise some good money? So you're looking for TV sets, you're looking for clothes. What are you after?
Yeah, and I would say, unfortunately, I can't type anything in the Q&A, maybe because I'm a panelist, I'm not sure, but
that may be the key. Yeah.
If you go to well, first of all, let me say this. Let me give you a phone number, okay? Because you call this number, we will come pick up your donation. You don't even have to take it somewhere, and we'll give you a charitable receipt. We have trucks, our box trucks on the road every day. And if you just call 818-392-0020, okay, 818-392-0020. So if you call that number, then we'll schedule a pickup and we'll give you a charitable receipt. Now, what is it? I mean, honestly, the best thing is clothes. Clothes and smaller household items, sometimes larger furniture and stuff. We just don't have enough room for it. And I will say this, typically what we do is we'll take those donations and we try to monetize them first. But if something doesn't sell in our thrift stores within a 4-week period, we then will take that, and according to size, we'll make it available to our residents in our shelters. So it works out really good. We monetize it, but then we also make sure that our guests have adequate clothing. And we'll also, sometimes if they're going for a job interview, we'll give them a voucher and say, go to our thrift store and pick out what you want. They'll do that. They can pick out a suit or a pantsuit or whatever they want for their interview. And that works out very well.
Well, I think we're going to be looking forward to working with you, especially if you put together the committee with Bob and others, that you'll have input from the community on things that are going on. I think that'll be very helpful for everybody too. I think it'll be helpful for you to make sure that you're getting a sounding board from what's going on in the community of things that are happening. You've got a lot of things that are going on in your life to be watching all of them at the same time to keep them going. The juggling can be a little bit much, I'm sure. But nonetheless, our prayers to you that things will go well and that things will go well for our community in that process. Know that we're here to help where we can. We're also going to hold your feet to the fire on stuff too. It is our community. We are watching that. This is something that's new for us, and we have concerns and questions. That's always going to be the case to it. And don't take that wrong as to being an offense to you. It's not. It's just that when everything is changing, those changes sometimes are a little bit difficult to understand. The more information we can have, the better off that we are. So we deeply appreciate you spending time with us, going through and telling us about the details that you've got that are going on. And I hope that we haven't in any way offended you by the questions. We want you to know that there are going to be tough questions, and we'll continue to do that as time goes on too. But we're certainly not here to be antagonistic to you or to anybody else that comes to work with us. So nonetheless, everybody should know that the 27th of May, there is a tour available at the facility. Just go and register over at their site. And you can pick it up off of our website too. There's a link there as well. And
let me just add, John,
Please.
ultimately, you don't have to register. That's just so we kind of know how many are coming, but you can just show up. It's an open house. It's from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. But if you register, it helps us so we get an idea how many people are coming, because we'll have some light refreshments out, and we want it to be a pleasant experience.
I like that. I think that's fair, and we deeply appreciate that. Ken, thank you. Thanks for the work that you're doing in the community and you're doing throughout the entire Southern California area, and helping those that are desperately in need of help. That compassion, I think, shows in the work that you're doing. I hope that continues, and that you don't get hardened by that. That's a tough thing to be doing. And if there's anything we can do to help out in some areas, please let us know on that. But we do thank you deeply for spending your time with us tonight.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to seeing you. I'll be giving the tours along with a couple others. So I'd love to meet you in person and, show you firsthand what's going on. I think you'll be really pleased.